This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and here's one that you guys have been waiting for, at least so you've said. This is the Lenovo ThinkPad X250. Unsurprisingly, it is the replacement for the X240 that came out last year. Intel 5th generation Broadwell CPUs. We have the redesigned trackpad here, which adds the clicky buttons back up top the way ThinkPad people like them. We're going to look at it now. So here it is, another generation of the Lenovo ThinkPad X series. One of my favorite series from Lenovo. I think it's one of the most popular with probably many folks out there. Why? Because it's super sturdily built, but it is compact, 12.5 inches, easy to carry. Lenovo says starting at 2.88 pounds. To qualify that, I believe they are measuring it without any battery installed, except for the permanently installed internal 3-cell battery. And this uses the bridge battery system, Power Bridge as Lenovo calls it. So you have a permanently installed 3-cell 23 watt-hour battery here, and here you see the 3-cell battery that is removable. 2 latches, just like laptops of old before Ultrabooks came along with unibody designs, so you can take that one out. Obviously it's going to add a couple of ounces of weight. Ours measured 3 pounds and 4 ounces with this battery in. And there's also the option of the 6-cell 72 watt-hour battery. That's the beauty of the X series ThinkPad, just like the T series, and why you might consider it, say, instead of a ThinkPad Yoga, for those of you who don't need the digital pen option, for example, or one of the many other laptops that Lenovo actually offers, because there aren't too many small and light laptops these days that actually have removable batteries at all, let alone this kind of system where you have 2 different battery capacities you can choose from. So you get the flush battery right there, and this one obviously is going to create a bit of a hump, and you've got little feet for the stand there. Lenovo claims up to 20 hours on a charge when you're using this, plus obviously the permanently installed internal battery there. Manufacturers are generally optimistic. Of course, that's optimistic. Good luck getting 20 hours out of it, but we did get 15, 16 hours, and that's with sane settings, you know, like 40% brightness. It's a very bright display, so 40% is adequate. Average productivity use, no, I'm not playing Battlefield 4 on this or something like that when I'm doing it, but I did stream some full HD videos and stuff like that. So we don't always address battery life first, but because it's just so much the character of the X series right now and the T series, it's good to bring it up. By the way, these are also interchangeable with the T series ThinkPad, so you guys and gals who are running IT shops, and you've got a mix of both of these in here, that gives you some versatility, because you can just keep a bit of batteries, and regardless of which laptop somebody has, you can still use the same batteries. Obviously here, traditional docking connector, instead of using the one-link or OneLink Pro connector that we see on some other ThinkPads, this one uses the more corporate-oriented, because probably a lot of desks already have those docking stations sitting there, connector. Yes, it's always open, it's always exposed. Somebody asked about that once, but it's not something that you really feel on your legs, because, well, your legs would be probably on either side of it, unless you really bring your knees in tight. Ventilation holes over here. Spill-resistant keyboard, as is the norm for most ThinkPads. For a ThinkPad, it's not too thick. It's 0.85 inches. Lots of ports here. That's another thing that the T and the X series are great at. So we have actual Ethernet built in, no dongle adapter required. Woohoo! Lock slot right there, SD card slot, and this is the slot above it for the optional 4G LTE radio or modem. That's a $149 option. It used to be with Lenovo, sometimes those were very expensive, so that's really not a bad upcharge, and that would go in the available M2 slot that you'll see when we show you the internals. USB 3.0 port here, combo mic headphone jack on this side. And now looking around in the back, the usual robust Lenovo hinges, and we've switched to the bigger battery so you can see what that looks like installed. And on this side, ventilation holes. This is where you plug in the charger. VGA port. Yes, business people need VGA ports. Stop making jokes about that, folks. Another USB 3.0 port and a mini display port as well. So handy there, no matter what kind of display type you have. Multiple monitors. If you need HDMI, you can easily get a dongle adapter that goes from mini display port to HDMI. And here's what the internals look like. First, you take out the removable battery, which this is the bay for that right here. Here's our fan for our CPU. This is a RAM slot right here. It does have a removable RAM, however, there's only one slot, so commonly available, the max is an 8 gig DIMM RAM module right now. Of course, Intelligent Memory does make 16 gigs, maybe more companies will. This is the internal battery, which obviously once you take off the cover, you could unscrew the screws, disconnect the connector, and replace it if you needed to. The SSD or hard drive is standard 2.5-inch slim height form factor right there, SATA connector. Not a fancy M2 or PCIe SSD or anything like that there. This is our Intel wireless card with Bluetooth right here and an M2 slot. Here's an empty slot with the obvious antenna leads going to it in case you go for that LTE 3G, 4G module right there. So that's what the internals look like. Pretty serviceable, pretty upgradable stuff. And for those of you who are also contemplating the ThinkPad Yoga, the 12.5-inch model, here they are together. On top is the Yoga-ing model. In terms of thickness, it's pretty close. The Yoga is a little bit slimmer there. Now the Yoga's claim to fame is, besides the fact that there's the pen option, well, it's a convertible. You know, you can fold it flat like so. You got the screen right there. So what do you lose? No bridge battery system here for those of you who really need that feature. Built-in battery, nothing removable there. Also, difference in ports. You don't get Ethernet, for example, on the Yoga-ing model right here. And for those of you who might want a little more screen real estate, this is the Lenovo ThinkPad T450S that we've already reviewed. You can watch a video review of that. 14-inch display, so if you want a bigger display, a bit easier on the eyes. Otherwise, you know, these guys are just about separated at birth in terms of having a whole lot of ports on here. You got your built-in Ethernet, you've got your VGA port, you've got USB ports, the usual kind of stuff right there. Docking connector on the bottom. Really just depends on what size you want. In terms of features and internals, you're looking at the same thing, just the difference in screen size. And I have to say Lenovo did a good job with the T450S because you can see that the footprint really isn't that much bigger. And this is what it looks like when you open it up. It has an anti-glare display, that coating that Lenovo's been using a lot in their laptops. It's not completely immune. You can see a little bit there, but it's certainly not a mirror. You can't use it to floss your teeth properly or anything like that. It's not that reflective. Several different display options here. We'll go over those in a minute. But first off, you can see we're back to the good stuff here with the trackpad. It is one that has the discrete dedicated hardware buttons up top there. For those of you who like the track point and really didn't like using just a buttonless kind of trackpad, you've got it for the track point up there, not for down here. So Lenovo's usual very good Synaptics trackpad. As Windows trackpads go, it's pretty darn good. Fingerprint scanner right over here, power button right over here, and the usual excellent Lenovo keyboard. Gosh, it's just so good. Because this thing isn't crazy skinny, for example, if I'm talking about the ThinkPad X1 Carbon, for example, which is one of the thinnest you can get in the way of a ThinkPad, you get more key travel here. Usual tactile smile-shaped keys, very well sculpted. It is awesome to type on. This is a writer's best friend, this keyboard. It's good. Backlit as well, and the usual, you hit the FM plus spacebar to turn your backlighting on and off. So let's talk about those display options, because it can get pretty darn confusing when you've got 4 different options. The base model, if you're looking at the $800 base configuration, which gets you a Core i3, a 500 gig mechanical hard drive, that also gets you the lowest end panel. That's a TN panel, 200 nits of brightness only. It's not real nice. This is what your big company is going to buy you because they want to save the most money. But if you're buying this for yourself or your small IT shop where people will come and yell at you, go for the next one up. It's not that much more money. 1366 by 768 for the base model, by the way. The next step up is $80, but that gets you an IPS 300 nit brightness display. That means that's a pretty nice bright display. It's IPS. The colors are going to be better. The contrast is going to be better. The viewing angles are going to be lots better. So really, you want to consider at least going up one step to the $80 improvement to get yourself an IPS brighter display. We have the top of the line model, which is a 1080p touchscreen, 10 points of touch on this. Now, for this kind of design traditional laptop, some of you may not want a touchscreen. You don't have to get it. If you do go with the touch model, that's $330. That's getting kind of rich there. 360 nits of brightness, though ours actually measured 391. Good going there, Lenovo. But if you want to go up $130 from base price, you can get that 1080p non-touch. There'll be anti-glare also, which Lenovo says is 400 nits. That's not bad for $130. So for those of you who like higher resolution in your smaller size laptop here, that would be a good choice. All run on Intel HD 5500 integrated graphics. Very rare to see dedicated graphics in an Ultrabook. It happens once in a while. Lenovo's even done it, in fact, with the NVIDIA GT840M, but not on this model, just integrated graphics. Intel ULV 15-watt Ultrabook CPUs, Core i3, Core i5, Core i7 are available. 5th generation Broadwell. As we'll show you inside, there's 1 RAM slot, so you can order this with either 4 or 8 gigs of RAM. So 8 would be the theoretical maximum unless you go hunting for special memory elsewhere that's higher capacity. Above the display, we have the usual 720p webcam. It's okay. It's not bad at all. Lenovo put more effort into the audio quality, and they did a nice job with the built-in microphones. You have a couple of features like mask the keyboard sounds. I'm guilty of that. You know, you're having a Skype conversation with somebody and you're just typing away at something at the same time. Well, if you don't want them to know you're doing that, it's taken care of. Also, there's a hear my voice only, so if you're in a noisy place with a noisy background, it will try to just focus on your voice and not pick up all the brouhaha behind you. And while we're talking about sound, on the output side of things, we have stereo speakers here and Dolby Digital Plus audio, so you got a bunch of presets here: movie, game, voice, custom. You can change the EQ the way you like. Let's see what it does actually for the audio sound, and we will go into a video to listen.
This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and once again we have here.
So here we are at 67% volume. Let's try a different preset, because to me that sounds a little bit thin. Lenovo's been pretty rich and full lately. Let's go for, well, I guess voice would make sense since it's me talking mostly there.
Pro with Retina display and dedicated AMD graphics, and here we have the top
Not so much.
Dell XPS 15. This refresh happened in 2014
It's
for the
game.
Dell XPS, but in 2015 they went with the 4K option for the high end, so that's actually kind of new here. Both of these have quad-core, full 28-watt CPUs, mobile workstation level performance from the CPUs here.
And let's make this big so you can see what video looks like.
With the last generation graphics that were in this Mac, though, so there's an interesting thing.
So in terms of the way it looks just great. In terms of the way it sounds, really that's a little bit less impressive than what I've heard from Lenovo lately from their ThinkPad laptops and even their Yoga laptops being pretty loud and pretty clear. That's a little thin, a little bit tinny. Oh well. One thing I will say about the display here, again, we have the top of the line model. Viewing angles are great because it's IPS. Brightness, see how good the viewing angles are there? Brightness is quite good. Color gamut, not really all that impressive though. 52% of Adobe RGB, 70% of sRGB, 99% of sRGB is what we see on today's higher-end Ultrabooks, the $1,000 club and above, or even sometimes $800 and above. So for those of you who are graphics professionals who are editing photos or video for a living, it probably won't be the ideal built-in panel. Now you can use an external monitor and take care of that problem if you have a better gamut external monitor, but the inbuilt panel, not so much. For everyday users who don't really care about color gamut and fidelity, it's a fine display. It looks pretty nice. It may not be a wow, my goodness, I've never seen anything so saturated and bright, but it's not too bad. And for those of you who like to work at odd angles, typical of the ThinkPad, you can flatten this out. It doesn't go any further, it doesn't yoga, it doesn't go backwards, but you can use it all the way back to flat. Not so important with the IPS panels in terms of finding the right viewing angle because it's pretty darn viewable no matter how I move it. But if you happen to get that low-end TN panel, you're going to be happy that you have so much range of motion there to get the best possible viewing angle. Other features include dual-band Wi-Fi 802.11ac, and that's the Intel 7265 card, which is a pretty good card, and with integrated Bluetooth as well. Behaves well, good range, good throughput, not flaky like some older generation Intel wireless cards. Since this runs on Intel Ultrabook ULV CPUs, it does not get hot. It does not generally get noisy. If you're installing software, if it's doing a whole lot of Windows updates, you will hear the fan come on. It does come on occasionally. It does with all laptops, but generally speaking, heat's not an issue with this, and we have lots of ventilation on the bottom here. Never found it got too hot to touch here. It was never uncomfortable to use directly on my lap. So how about performance? This is the Intel Core i5-5200U model. We have 180 gig Intel SSD in here and 8 gigs of RAM. So pretty much your standard Core i5 Ultrabook kind of stuff that you would get with many machines on the market that are priced similarly. PC Mark 8, it scored 2691. It's basically, this is going to score like other Core i5 Intel 5th generation Broadwells. PC Mark 7, it scored 4855. W Prime, it computed Pi in 19.7 seconds. Geekbench 3, 2651 for the single core. Multi-core was 5301. So it is your typical Ultrabook Core i5 ULV performer here. Slightly under the ThinkPad T450S that we reviewed. That it had a just 100 megahertz faster CPU there, so not much of a difference to talk about there. In practice, it runs sprightly. It's responsive, it's fine. This is a ThinkPad line model, so those of you who are thinking about the Lenovo IdeaPad model, the consumer line that come with some extra bloatware on there, some of which was questionable for a while, you don't get that with the ThinkPad models at all. You get ThinkPad management utilities are actually very useful on here, none of the extra bloat. This is the Lenovo charger that it comes with. Standard 45 watt, they use with a lot of machines. Pretty light, pretty small, not hugely thin, but that's okay. It's small enough. And that fits with the portability of the package for those of you who are looking for a business class machine in terms of durability, configurability, direct from Lenovo. Well, this is it. It's very easy, very light to carry around. You get a crazy amount of ports, relatively speaking, for something in this size range, which is to say 13-inch Ultrabook or below. Battery life with the bridge battery system, that's one of the reasons to consider this. If that's important to you, if you need to be able to swap in spare batteries to use that 6-cell battery and get those crazy run times, this would be the machine for you. If you want something in the way of a bigger screen, but you like everything else, there is a Lenovo T450S. If you like it, you don't really care so much about the bridge battery system, just decent battery life, but you want the optional pen and the 360-degree hinge to use it in tablet mode, there's the ThinkPad Yoga. So Lenovo's really got a model for just about everybody these days. So that's the Lenovo ThinkPad X250. It's available now, like I said, starting at $800 for a pretty low-end configuration. Lenovo's like that. They often let you start really low. And for our really nicely configured model, but it's not top of the line either. It's about $1,500. So I would count getting some of the things you probably really should, like the Core i5, an SSD, and not a hard drive. Getting the IPS panel on here, I would count on spending, say, $1,100 on this. If you don't want to go high-end, of course, you can go to town with it. Anyway, for the price, certainly durable, spill-resistant keyboard. You got the usual Lenovo build quality here. Lots of ports. That's what sets it aside from the ThinkPad Yoga 12.5-inch like we talked about. And as for you people who like the T450S but want something even smaller too, because it's very similar in many ways to the T450S. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you like this, hit that like button. Go ahead, do it.